All right, Mr. Pete.
Thank you, Rabbi. A couple of things that jumped out at me in this. First, when you were talking about being born again, what jumped into my mind, I think, is when the bubble was popped. I think in some respects, I was born again into this walk then, because what I discovered was I realized I didn't know anything. And so in the first teachings that I heard from you and when my bubble was popped then, I found I was having to relearn and take a whole fresh look at everything I thought I knew about Scripture and all that. Is that a fair assessment?
I think that's perfectly accurate. I would say that your bubble popping moment, think of it as, again, like a rebirth. So when you first came out of the birth canal, and you get hit with the light and all the other, nobody remembers this stuff, but can you imagine you get hit with light and all this sound and everything else is going on, and temperature and whatever, all these things that are hitting you, and it's all new and it's all different. Well, when you get your bubble popped, all of a sudden you realize the world that you were in is not the real world. Same thing is coming out of the womb. You were in a world for 9 months. And that world was certainly plenty comfortable, and you didn't have to do a whole lot, and you were just automatically being fed and taken care of, and it was warm and all those other things. But then you come out into this different place and you realize, wait a minute, this is not the world I understood. And that's essentially the same thing happens when your bubble gets popped, is you realize the world that you thought you understood, you didn't necessarily understand it correctly. You only saw what you saw through a filter, okay? So yeah, essentially that could be something you should all be looking at as saying that could be your born again moment, so to speak, is that you came to realize there was more. When he started asking you to seek him, okay? Born again doesn't have to do with knowing Messiah or not. It has to do with when the Father grabbed a hold of you and woke you up. That was when you were born. Then it may have taken a minute for you to find Messiah. It may have taken you a minute to find some things after he got at your attention. See, people want to think about born again being like their altar call moment or something, okay? No, I think he birthed you again when he said, Pop, hey, Mr. Pete, come find me, all right? He says, I just gave you a new birth. You're now on a new path, come look for me, okay?
And then there's an evolution of that too, because as we grow, we learn more about the proper way to observe the Sabbath and the importance of tithing and the importance of being present at the feasts and service and all those things. So I think there's an evolution involved with following being born again and having your bubble popped.
So I like what you just said. Let me kind of put something in with that. When you are thinking about what you're doing, okay, take this how you want to take this, especially when it comes to not only everyday life, but like when you come to feasts and things, the question you should be asking is what I'm doing what I need to be doing for the inner being, okay? Because you may come to a feast thinking, I need to sit and listen. Well, I don't know, maybe that's not what your inner being needs. Maybe your inner being needs to do some of that, but maybe it needs to serve. Maybe it needs to go be with somebody that needs you. Maybe it needs you to go be with some people that make you uncomfortable so you learn to grow. What does your inner being need? Not want, not what you want. What does your inner being need to grow? Okay? And I think that you should embrace the thought that your inner being grows through challenge. Okay? Not through ease, not through pleasure, but through challenge. You grow your inner being by going and doing things that are uncomfortable and challenging that you know you need to do. Okay? And so when you come to a feast, those of you that don't normally serve, you might want to ask the question, how is that helping your inner being? Well, my inner being needs to listen. Well, you know what? That's completely true, but you know what? It's all recorded. So if you happen to be serving and missing a teaching while you're serving, it's still recorded. So you don't need to be there live. See, that's the old selfish you that wants to be there and I want to experience, and I drove so far, I flew from another country. Okay? What does your inner being need? Not what it wants. This is the hard question. It's hard for you to be honest with yourself. What does it need? All right, Pete.
And in verse 13 where it says, therefore having girded up the loins of your mind, I remember, I think it was in the Armor of Elohim teaching, you talked about girding your loins being to prepare for battle. And so in the context here in verse 13, having girded up the loins of your mind, could that also mean to prepare your mind for the battles that are coming?
Yeah, certainly that's a part of it. You can look at that from the Armor of Elohim teaching. Also, go look up, I believe there's an In Focus called Are You a Useless Girdle or something like that. Okay? So that comes from the prophets, all right? So maybe go listen to that. That's a sort of a good perspective on the idea of the putting a girdle on something, okay? The way the scripture intends you to understand that. All right, Ms. Shira.
This was really helpful to me, very, very helpful to me, because coming out of Christianity, I had this, born again is your status, it's your golden ticket. And so I put that away, and for some reason, I got into this idea that, okay, born again is what happens when you actually meet Yeshua, if you're in the first resurrection and you get transformed then.
Right.
Which I'm sure applies.
And people have taught over the years, yeah.
But I have to talk about horses again, okay? When a foal is born, they will say, okay, here's his pedigree. He's out of such and such mare by such and such a stallion. And so when it was talking about being born again through incorruptible seed, through or by the word of God, it's like, okay, we're sired, fathered by the living word. And so new genes, new capabilities, new character. I'm going to have to ponder this for a while.
All right, so let me take your horse analogy.
Okay.
Because in my corrupted youth, I was taught how to read a racing form and read bloodlines in horses and understand those kind of things. One of the things that you would learn when you would look at the bloodlines of the horses is this horse built for or bred for distance, for speed, for the turf, for the grass, okay, for the mud, And so these are things that you can see based on the lineage of the horse. Now, it doesn't always bear out, but it does often enough. And so the same thing you could look at with this is that, okay, when you look at the lineage of the horse, say, okay, this horse should be fast because the lineage shows a lot of speed. Well, we should know that this lineage is strong, our lineage, through the word, steadfast, reliable, trustworthy. The characteristics of the bloodline that we can see that we have the incorruptible seed and we are sired by the word, the way Shira put it. So that should give us an idea of the characteristics that we should be showing and demonstrating that people should expect because we have the bloodline for it.
Hallelujah. So here's my question. Somebody was going to bring this up, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
But when Yeshua is talking with Nicodemus, I've always wondered about this. Why did he say to Nicodemus, the wind blows where it will, and you hear the sound of it, but you cannot tell where it comes from and where it goes? So is everyone that is born of the Spirit. I was in charismatic Christianity, and we had a lot of woo-woo stuff going on, and sometimes people would use this verse to say, I just blew over here or blew over there, and, whatever the Spirit did, and sometimes it was really weird stuff.
Right. I'd have to go back and look at it from that point of view. I know I do have an in focus called Messing with Nicodemus or something like that.
Picking
on, yeah, I always get the name wrong. I knew I had it wrong again. Picking on Nicodemus. I'd have to go back to that section and just look at the wording there again from that particular perspective. And so, where is that?
John 3:8.
Thank you. I'll give you a quick thought. Okay, so he says, that which is born of the flesh is flesh, that which is born of the Spirit is spirit in verse 6. Do not marvel that I said to you, you have to be born from above. Okay, so he says that which is born of the flesh is flesh. So of the flesh meaning this is where it derives its essence from, right? It's flesh, and those are spirit of spirit. He says, do not marvel that I said you have to be born from above. He said, the Spirit breathes where it wishes, and you hear the sound of it and do not know where it comes from and where it goes. So is everyone who's born of the Spirit. Okay, so now he's trying to understand how this takes place. Of course, then I bring you to the prophecy where Yeshua says, are you a teacher? You don't know what this is all about, okay? So it does connect to that prophecy. But if you want to think of it this way, he's saying, look, the above, he's trying to say, how can you be born from, we're down here. He says, but the above interacts down here. He's saying, look, just like the Spirit breathes where it wishes, and you hear the sound of it, and the Spirit meaning ruach is breath or wind, okay? So it does manifest down here, and we do see some evidences of it. He says, so everyone who's down here, he says, so is everyone here who's born of the Spirit, okay? They're connected to that which is down here that you are not aware of and should be aware of, but it's here. It's a connecting point. It's not there running around like the wind, okay, and floating around. But he's trying to say, look, the previous verse explains this. He said, the one who's born of the flesh is flesh, the one who's born of the Spirit is spirit. And he says, so don't marvel that I say that you have to be born from above. In other words, you don't have to go to the above. The stuff from the above is down here. And those who are born of the Spirit are like that. Okay, they're connecting to that which is here that you're not seeing. Your bubble's not popped. You're not aware of what's going on. Did that help?
Awesome.
Okay.
So does that relate to the kingdom of Elohim is among you?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And you know what? We may cover a little bit about the reign of Elohim because a lot of these repentance verses, I have to think about how this is going to go. Oh, this is going to be such a long teaching if I don't bring it in. Most of the repentance verses say things like, repent because the kingdom is at hand, okay? And so there's a lot of connections between repentance and the kingdom. All right, Janet?
It really clicked to me when you said, that what is the goal of your belief, when you were talking about the deliverance but of lives. No, it wasn't that. It was the inner being, right? The soul. Okay, so when you were talking about clean slate, I was thinking, like some people may choose to move to a different place and start again. Like they create their own new identity. They start to be like the way they always wanted to be. Like they have another chance to start again. And I feel like that's a little bit how we were before we didn't know, and then we got the chance to show him that we want to become like him. You talk about what's inside, like what's driving the obedience. Like it wasn't just keep the Sabbath, eat kosher, but what's behind that? What is the intention of the heart? So then I was thinking, well, how do we, like even the scriptures, how can we discern the heart? Only he can, I suppose. But if we know what is written, but don't you think that sometimes we can be kind of like Adam and Eve, they were hiding. They didn't want to see that. They were maybe blinded, but intentionally not seeing what was there that wasn't of him. In that spiritual growth, becoming like him, how do we not become callous or complacent, or so that we can really embrace this the right way, like truly wanting to be him through the trials and through everything, is really my question to you, Rabbi.
All right, look, you have to have a very clear handle on the verse says to exult in the expectation. If you don't have a clear set understanding of what he expects, then you're going to have a problem. See, Christianity taught you to exult in the expectation of eternal life. Just be excited about eternal life. Well, good, be excited about that, but you have to understand what is expected to get there. And if you keep your focus on what's expected, then you'll also be aware of what will derail that. So you can't become complacent and callous and everything else if you're continuously embracing and having his frontlets before your eyes what he is expecting of you. What motivates you is what you are expecting of him, right? So you need both. I'm going to do all these things he expects of me because I expect from him all the wonderful things that he's promised, all right? But I also am never going to be allowing myself to get complacent and callous to the idea of what he expects of me in order to have all that, Okay, I can't just expect from him if it's a two-way street, all right? This is what we talked about in the covenant series, right? He tells us what we can expect from him and what he expects from us. We agree, that's called a covenant. And we agree to it, okay? So the only way we get out of line is if we allow our lusts of our old self, the desires, to clash with the expectation. When doing something you might desire is not going to fit into what he expects, when the more you give into that, the more you're not going to meet the expectations, the more you're going to get in trouble. The more you're going to be forced to do what most people do, which is change the expectations. You recreate his expectations into your own image so that you can do what you want. Okay?
That's so profound.
That's what most people do.
This is just so profound. I have to listen to this again, what you just said. It's just really helpful to me.
Which is why you have so many Messianic groups out there, Hebrew roots, whatever they want to call themselves, that are claiming to be Torah observant, but only to a limited degree because they had to rewrite what that meant in order to allow themselves to do the things that they do. So they have to alter the reality into their own version of reality. That's the only way that they can make that happen, okay? So, because only two things can happen. You can get callous to the point where you just throw the whole thing out, or because you believe there's a connection between what you expect from him and what he expects from you, the only way that you can still do what you want is to change the expectation of you. And that's why you have so many people out there that are excusing. Look, I know a lot of you watching right now, you're Christian, that's fine. It's not your fault, you were lied to, whatever. But you know the Sabbath is the Sabbath, but you don't know how to break away from the Sunday church because you're afraid. So you're going to somehow spin that it's okay to keep going where you're going, but it's not. It's breaking the fourth commandment, okay? But that's hard to do. It's hard to break away from the world, culture, reality that you have come to embrace your whole life. How can the whole world actually be upside down and backwards? I think it's pretty easy nowadays to see that the whole world is upside down and backwards. There isn't anything in health, relationships, politics, religion, anything major that's not clearly upside down and inside out and backwards. So why should it be any problem understanding that whatever you believe turned out to be a lie and upside down and backwards? Okay, I mean, it should be simple these days, you know? All right, go ahead.
Rabbi, thank you. That was really helpful. Verse 22, okay, when it says, it's talking about once you've cleansed your life, then it says, it talks about brotherly love, love one another fervently with a clean heart. So would you say that if we're not having that fervent love towards each other, there's something in our inner being that hasn't been cleansed, that it's kind of like the loving someone is kind of like the actual action or deed or the act that will prove that we believe that we're actually getting there, you know, like that our heart is actually pure and we're more becoming like him. But if we're having a hard time loving somebody, then that's not really happening. Can you expand on that, please?
No, I'm not going to go with that exactly.
Okay, so help me, please. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. Look, there's more than one aspect to the problem you described, okay? So not loving one another fervently is not a clean heart problem necessarily, but it's a growth maturity problem, okay? Because you're not going to love people fervently if you still have all kinds of, hurt and pride and judging and all these other issues that people have, all right? But he is saying those of you that are loving fervently, do it with a clean heart, okay? So for those that are loving fervently, do it with a clean heart. He's not saying without a clean heart you can't love fervently. You can love fervently even before you knew anything about Torah, okay? There were people in your life that you loved very fervently before you knew about anything, all right? Now, the people that you are struggling, because he's saying to do this with unfeigned brotherly love, the people you are struggling to love fervently, okay, what's fervently mean? With a fierceness, okay, that you're going to hold on to this love. I don't see most of that. Most people are very quick to just throw us away, throw each other away, and just get their feelings all hurt and whatever. There's no fierceness there, okay? And so I don't get that. You know, I watch a lot of married couples, and maybe you fit into this, I don't know, where there's issues and there's fighting and there's all kinds of problems, but often enough, either neither or sometimes only one is fighting for the marriage when it takes two. Because if they're both fighting for it, it'll get there, but they both got to fight for it. They're fighting with each other, but are they fighting for the marriage, okay? Okay, that's the fierceness, the fervency of saying, but I love you, this has to work, this has to get fixed, I'm willing to do whatever I need to do, whatever. That's missing in most places, in most marriages, all right? And so then it doesn't work. At some point, it breaks apart, or it just stays miserable forever, okay? Now, that fierceness doesn't mean that you fiercely defend your position. It has a fierceness of saying, I love you enough to be wrong. I love you enough to work on me. I love you enough to tolerate you and allow you to be a messed up whatever you are. I mean, it's very hard stuff. But think of what the Father has to do dealing with us. Oh, my goodness. All right? I mean, you know you could be tough to love. And so he's saying here, look, I want you guys to, in obeying the truth through the Spirit, have unfeigned brotherly love for one another and love one another fervently and do it with a clean heart. So a clean heart, I think, would be more like, let's love one another fervently without a wrong agenda, without other motivations. Okay, that's a whole different problem than when you were talking about Janet, okay? The problem you were talking about is that there are other emotional challenges as to what is making it hard for us to love people. Okay, so that's a completely different problem, having a hard time loving someone versus loving someone with the right agenda, with the clean heart. Okay? See, a lot of you have very conditional love. A lot of you have a heart problem. And so there's some fervency there. Okay, I've had some people say how much they loved me, you know, in this ministry, incredibly fervently, who are not here anymore because it wasn't a clean heart, okay? I'm not saying it was a terrible, I'm saying it wasn't a purely appropriate, you know, way of loving. There was an agenda. There was conditions, okay? See, if you have children, you should have that fierce love for your children. That doesn't matter what they do, you're still going to love them. Now, there may be conditions to how well you might interact with them if they're doing all kinds of whatever, but the love should not change. You should still have that fierce, fervent love. The problem is it's hard to love them and interact with them without your agenda. The agenda being, but I need you to be like I need you to be, and I need you to stop doing what you're doing, and I need you to do whatever. Okay, that's not a clean heart. Okay? I think that's more the answer there. And again, I love the questions because the more I talk, the more the answer clarifies in my head as I start putting it together. Okay, so keep asking the questions. All right, Daphne.
Hi. First of all, I wanted to just say thanks for this whole series, and then today in particular, because what is the good news and what does it mean to be born again are two things that I had to put on the shelf. Like they were just Christian buzzwords to me, and I never even when I was asked questions, the answers never made sense to me. So,
All right.
So now I feel like I understand.
Good, good.
And
I really hadn't planned to explain born again today, but just worked out.
Yeah.
You know.
And like what Pete was saying, I feel like, I never thought about it as being born again when I had my bubble pop, but the way you explained it today makes so much sense because I did feel like everything was new. Everything was interesting to me because it was all coming, and it was just a whole new world. And even my identity, like everything was new. So that this is just a comment that came to mind. So about being born again compared to like when you're born as a baby. So the gestational period, you're alive in there, and that's like one world, and then you get born into this world and this reality. It's like fulfilling, like if you just stayed in the first, like in the womb, you're not fulfilling your purpose at all. Because the whole purpose of that part is to be born into the world and be a person living in this experience, whatever, even though it's harder. And then if you're born again, and that's what I understand now, how you taught it, it's like being called your next level of purpose.
Well, that's partially it. I want to add something else, though. When you're born again, remember, when you come out of the womb, there's no real clarity as to what the purpose is that you're now in this new world. Mm-hmm. When you're born again, you're finally given that answer, why you're here, okay? So the first birth out of the womb, you're brought into a world that you have no idea why you're here, what's the point, you don't understand anything about it. Then you live for a bunch of years and you still don't know why you're here, you still don't know anything about it. You're just older. But then when he pops your bubble and he gives you this rebirth, the first thing that, for the first time, you now actually say, I think I understand why I'm here. Like, what's the point to all this? Mm-hmm. That's the rebirth.
Yeah,
okay.
And just one more thing, like what we're looking forward to. Like for me, I do look forward to, the forever kingdom, but it's more like I don't have a specific picture of what that's going to be. And it's like, oh, it's just going to be so fun or whatever. It's just more like, I know this life now is a lot better than it was before. I'm safer, I'm happier. Everything's just better. So I don't want to go back. And it's more like a continuation of that. Like I just know, well, that's what I'm supposed to do because that's the next step. And I just know it's going to be better and protected and safe and just, but I don't want to minimize it, but it's like the whole purpose of my being is to get there, even though I don't really know what it is. But I cling to it because it's really important because it's the whole point.
Right, and I want everybody to do something you just did. I want all of you to think about the positives since the born again experience, or the bubble pop, as I've always called it, right? Because she expressed that she knows she's better off, she's safer, she's all these positive things have happened since. Yeah, life has gotten its challenges that you didn't have before, but some of the challenges you had before have gone away. So you're in a different experience to some degree than you were in before, to a larger degree probably. And so I want you to make sure that you are reminding yourselves of those positive aspects of the experience, And that should make a huge difference. All right, Sarah Beth.
Okay, I'm gonna probably need you to do that whole interpreting thing where you can speak Sarah Beth, but
I took it as a second language in college.
That was very smart and good of you. Okay, so I'm trying to rewrite some of the Christian that was in there, talking about like being protected by the power of Elohim. And you kind of helped me with the, we won't get complacent, because I feel like, resting in that protection is just the Christians being complacent. So that part that you said, you won't get complacent when you understand what he expects of you together as part of the puzzle.
Well, it's the through belief part. So if you understand that the protection is through belief, then you can't get complacent because belief is the driver.
So I guess that was the part I wanted to reword and make sure I was wording correctly. It's our beliefs that create our experiences, kind of like you taught in the Level Up class and stuff. Or in this case, that protection. It's our belief that creates that protection. We were protected by our beliefs in his promises. It's like gravity. It's not like he's stepping in and actively doing something necessarily. It's just like gravity. Our beliefs bring us to that place where we're protected. Because again, not being complacent, we understand what we need to do to get there. Is that correct?
That's yeah, I'll say that's correct. Okay, so look, it says here, and we're in verse 5 here, it says you're protected by the power of Elohim through belief. So protected by the power of Elohim. Now, I've taught you over and over again that the Torah does 3 things. One of them is keeps you safe, right? Okay, protects you, keeps you safe. All right, so that would be more like gravity. I drop this, it falls, okay? So if you are going to be Torah observant, you're going to be covenanted, you're going to get a certain level of protection built into that, a certain level. Not like fully, hey, you're invulnerable now to everything, because we're not in the land and we're not protected like he promised them in the land and when they kept the covenant as a nation. But there are some levels of protection there. But also, I think it's more than that. I think he does actively provide more for those that he's bubble popped and have responded to it through belief. So I don't think it's just the gravity equivalent. I think there's some of his actively intervening for you because he wants to encourage you to continue in belief and see that there is a fruit of that belief, that it brings this protection of Elohim. So I think some of it is actually more active than the way you worded it.
Okay, thank you. That I will go back and chew on that. Second question, kind of connected to that, you talked about needing to focus on the expectation more than we're focusing on the past or getting stuck in the present, but to really be, intuitively focusing on the future, what he's promised that's coming, which is kind of the context of the verse, is it not? That protection, that belief we're working toward is the forever that he's going to give us, correct?
Right.
So please help my sensing. I was trying to figure out, why do I not do that? Because I do believe what's coming, but I don't focus on it like you're talking about. And I can see the difference that would make if I did. But I don't focus on it because it's like that. I know what's in front of me. I know what's here. I'll just know it when it's here. But how do my map might be wrong if I just intuitively figure it out.
Excuse me. No, I mean, look, you've got, from a Myers-Briggs point of view, you've got intuition. It's just not in as mature a place as, say, your sensing is, right?
Which means I might make a wrong map.
Well, the thing is that you have to grow it, in terms of focusing. Look, if you guys are sensors, okay, if that's your letter in your Myers-Briggs, I mean, you tend to be dealing with memory and things that have already happened and those things that are actually happening now that are tangible. So the best thing you could do is find a way to project out into the future, because unlike pure intuition, which is trying to fill in an unknown, we are told what the future will look like to a large degree. So you can, I call it time warping, project yourself into the future and say, what would life be like if I keep down this path? What is it I'm looking forward to? And kind of sense it and experience it to some degree. What is life like in that place that you're not connecting with well enough? And see if you can make it more tangible. Picture it, feel it, close your eyes. What's it smell like, sound like, look like, taste like, experience it, okay? At least the parts and aspects that he's promising, all right? Because this is not like a normal intuitive unknown where you're trying to guess what's behind the curtain and you don't really know, so you're going to use all the information available to try to extrapolate something. He gives you some, or at least enough information that you can look forward to this thing that's coming, all right? You know that it'll be life without the stressors and the pains and the tears and all these other things, the physical health issues and all. I mean, there's things you can look forward to, all right? So let your imagination run a little bit, okay, which is not as easy for the sensors as the intuitives, but let that run and make it a sensory experience. And then maybe you can connect to it more. Would that help? Okay, I'm getting a nodding of yes. Okay, Marlene. And by the way, we will at one of these feasts talk a lot more about Myers-Briggs, because I think that's another piece of the puzzle, all right? So anyway, for those of you that do personality things, understand that almost all personality tests are only testing for a specific aspect of your personality, okay? No test covers all of the aspects. The colors that we did covers the driver that motivates the things you do. Myers-Briggs deals with information, how you gather it and what you do with it, how you evaluate it. So it's an information personality aspect, okay? So things like this, when I talk about sensing versus intuitive, is the information that's being talked about in Scripture is going to be dealt with very differently by you sensors versus the intuitives because of the way we deal with information, okay? And the way we handle information. I mean, Abba picked me with a strong intuitive side because that's how I take this giant puzzle and piece it together for you, okay? Especially in ways that nobody's heard done before. Not that it's never been done, but I've never heard it done before. So whatever is that's through the intuitive. It's not something that is tangibly right there and easy to kind of grasp. All right, so just keep that in mind as we add more fun to this inner journey, right, of understanding ourselves, okay? And I think that these various personality things actually are very useful. Anybody think they're useful for that? Okay. Okay. But, for all of you SJs in the world, okay, especially you SFJs, all right, this could be tough to do without the intuitive perceiving function really, working very strong, okay? And so those of you that know Myers-Briggs know what I'm talking about, but, okay. Anyway, Marlene.
You sure?
Mm-hmm.
I just want to thank you. Every time there's a service, I don't know why I'm surprised, but I'm surprised every time with something profound and something so precious that Yahweh wants to share with me. And I'm just so thankful. And today it was about being born again. And it's kind of funny because it seems like it's been such a long time, and it seems like such a simple concept. But today when you said, it was like, when you first come out of the womb, you don't know anything. And you're sent into this world, and you're just like figuring things out, And I thought about a baby, and you don't even know I don't even know that's my hand. Like, you can't even focus your eyes, And the thing that really blessed me about that is because in Christianity, they act like being born, thank you. They act like being born again was you being born into a full, mature human. A full, mature Elohim species.
Right.
Like you could be born into an Elohim species, and that was the expectation. I mean, it wasn't really an expectation. It was in there somewhere. Like, you should be doing this. Now you're not able to sin. You should be all this stuff.
So it was more like an arrival point.
Yeah. Just like you said, it's a starting point. It's not an arrival point. And so my whole life I've been beating myself up about all the falling shorts. All the marks that I've missed, and all the not pleasing I've been doing, and all the backsliding, and all the everything. And now I realize that it's been a journey this whole time. I'm not gonna arrive until I become the Elohim species. That is when I arrive. And so I don't need to beat myself up about my growth, because it's growth. And I was just over there crying and thanking the Father for all the trials I've been through, because all of those were opportunities for me to overcome and get closer to the transformation into the Elohim species eventually. And I'm just really just thinking about all the things so differently. I'm just thinking about all of the hard trials that now I see as such a blessing, because that was me that was little transformations. All the pop quizzes you talk about, I was just thinking of myself today. Today, I made some choices that were not Shabbat worthy. And when I was doing them, it was a little twinge, like, should you be doing that? Is that Shabbat worthy? What would Rabbi say, And I thought, no, I need to do this. And then I thought, what you said today, that's lust.
Yep.
What is the lust? Why? What lust was that about what was that? It was a vanity. It was I want somebody to think of me a certain way, so that's why I need to do this. And what it was cleaning some things. It's like I noticed there were some things that wasn't clean, and I have a house guest. And I was thinking, oh, I can't believe, what is that on my mirror? Oh, I need to clean that, It was so dumb, Rabbi. It was so dumb. And I'm thinking, this is not Shabbat worthy. This is not necessary. But I had a lust of my own vanity. And what is she going to think about me when she sees this smear on my mirror?
That you're busy.
But it was
person.
It was like a pride. It was like a pride,
Sure.
And everything I cleaned in the bathroom today, I thought, oh, this isn't Shabbat worthy. Should I be doing this? What would Rabbi say? You know? And I still pressed on. I kept doing it. And I remember, so to now, I feel like, well, I'm glad I confessed this. Now everybody knows. I cleaned things in my bathroom today. My bathroom was not spick and span like I would have liked it to be when I had a house guest.
All right, so that's like 2 Hail Marys or Our Fathers or, although I don't know why you'd want to throw a touchdown pass, a Hail Mary, but, so anyway, just look, we're glad you confessed
and that was an opportunity, though. It was an opportunity for me to make a good choice, and instead of making a good choice, I did not make a good choice, and I'm appreciative now in hindsight that I can see that these choices, these are all choices, these are pop quizzes in our life for us to make a choice and move toward the transformation into the Yeshua-like being. And if I had made a better choice today, I would have been moving forward. But now that I recognize it, I can double down and I can guard that better.
All right, so now this is something I wish I could do when we go through that idea of going through like Genesis on and look at why people do what they do and what drives them and everything else. I wish I could interview the people. And the reason is this, because I want to show everybody, this is what we do in counseling, okay? So what I want you to think about is what you identified, maybe it was vanity or pride or this or that. But let's dig underneath. So what was really going on is not just what you might have been feeling, but it was your fear of what someone else may be thinking, right? And so, of course, that means that you're dealing with your expectation that that other person is an immature, not grown, mature person. Because see, if they
Sorry,
were...
Terry, I really wasn't thinking that.
Because, no, I don't mean them specifically. I mean in general. No, I'm saying in general because if they were, you have no fear that they would judge you. You see? So you're just assuming they're like you, all right? And that you might judge somebody if you saw their mirror was a mess or whatever, right? So I'm just saying is you're extrapolating out and expecting things even though that's not necessarily what the person would do. Okay, because you're projecting out that I'm a flawed human being, and a flawed human being is also gonna look at it, and they're gonna look at me like, what's wrong with her, that she left her mirror this way or whatever. And so, again, if you're dealing only with people that you're expecting them to be mature, then you would be expecting that a mature person would understand that something was a reason why that didn't get done and wouldn't judge me. And if they do, then it's on them, not on me, okay? See, but we are not mature enough to look at people that way. All right? So we're always afraid of being judged. We're always being, afraid everybody's gonna be talking about me. Because you know why? Because you guys do. Because you're so not there yet, okay? I mean, you guys are just the biggest yentas on the planet. All you do is gossip to each other and run your mouths all the time. Which is, by the way, why I get to hear everything, because somehow it eventually gets to me. Because you guys cannot keep your mouth shut. You all like to talk about each other. And so then naturally we all have a fear, okay? And it wouldn't necessarily be because of what you know of your guest that was at your house, but just that would be a general, well, what would somebody think if they saw this? They're gonna assume I'm this, that, or you know what? Why don't you just either ignore it or you just go, hey, I apologize, I got busy and I didn't get that done. Okay, but it's Shabbat, so we're just gonna wait. There's ways to handle it that's humble, owns it, and doesn't worry about the judging, because if the judging is done, he says judgment is mine. If they're judging you, that's wrong. Yeshua says, judge not, okay? And so why are we so afraid all the time of being judged? And I'm telling you, 60% or 80% or something of my counseling has to do with people always afraid of being judged. They're always afraid of falling short, and falling short is afraid of being judged. All those people that are always feeling like, well, I'm always not gonna make it, I'm always gonna fail. It's not that you're worried about failing, you're afraid about somebody looking at you and judging you a failure, judging you doing your own. It's the judging that you're always upset about or afraid of, okay? Successful people don't have any fear of that. So they fail and they don't get upset like someone's gonna judge them. They know that's just a part of success, okay? All right, but the thing is, a lot of you are emotionally really challenged with all the insecurities and anxieties and everything else because you're so concerned because probably people in your life had done this to you, being judged all the time. Mom did it, dad did it, somebody did it, your brothers, your sisters, somebody. You're always being told that you were falling short, and what's wrong with you? How could you not have seen this thing, and why didn't you clean this? Didn't you know Shabbat was coming? What's wrong with you? Okay? But that's just garbage. You gotta have to learn to let that go. Okay? See, we have a harder thing than what you would think of like this born again thing. Like, well, from birth, we went from being in the womb to coming out, and we have this world, we have no idea what's the deal. See, you were born again, and you actually know what the deal was. And now you don't know what to do with what you used to know and what you know now, but that used to be you, but it's not supposed to be. That's a hard mess for you to deal with. Oh, it's a complete hot mess right there. Because you don't just have like, I didn't just pick you up and stick you in another dimension, in another planet, and you're like, wow, I gotta figure this new place out. No, everything else is exactly the same, except you. But yet you're still exactly the same, except that much different. And that much is supposed to keep growing and growing and growing until it's you. That's a much tougher deal. You know, the baby comes out of the womb, doesn't even know its hand is his hand, right? Like, what's that? Oh, wow. Until it realizes, wow, I can control that thing, you know? Meanwhile, with you, you've been living life. You thought you understood, you thought you this, that, and then all of a sudden now, you realize, wait a minute, that's not exactly everything's the way I thought it was. It's different. Very tough, okay, very tough. Because you already have the experience you have, okay? And that changes and makes it more challenging. All right, so I'm glad that this is helping you to release all of that stuff, okay?
I'm glad that I confessed today because you were able to give even more insights. And now I see that it's my immaturity projecting and my fears projecting onto other people. And it's not even a real thing, like it's false evidence appearing real, you know? So I can just ignore those things and realize the most important thing is to please the Father. Oh, and I was gonna say when Sarah Beth was talking about thinking about the kingdom, my biggest driver is to hear well done. And it could be what you were talking about when you were talking about, you know, people being afraid of falling short, you know, because that is something that I didn't feel like I measured up. And so the driver for me is to hear well done because I think that I didn't hear that from my family, you know. So,
sure. So
even if I'm not even thinking about the kingdom. I'm just thinking about whatever my prize is, you know, hallelujah, right. You know. Right. I just want to be pleasing in his sight, you know. And I know, like Daphne was saying, we can't really imagine, I mean, a little bit, you know, but whatever that is, I know it's gonna be great. And then the other thing I wanted to comment on was when you talked about the safety, what I'm realizing more and more is that I could see the safety as being more like my inner being is the thing that he is keeping safe. Because when you were talking about safety, when you were talking to Sarah Beth about that, what I imagined, what popped in my head was the Maccabees. And they were willing to be, you know, skinned alive and stuff. But what was kept safe was their position on their Torah observance. You know, that they didn't waver, even though, you know, they got their tongues cut off or whatever. They didn't waver in their belief, their actions showing what their belief was. And that is the thing that I think about, you know, when in times, if I'm alive during that time, the tribulation, that I will be that strong that I could not waver in my Torah observance, in my love of what Yahweh wants me to do and be, and be willing to be skinned alive or my tongue cut out or whatever that is, you know,
or have something on your mirror.
Yeah. feeling safe that that I can be that strong to withstand those things. And I do believe that he's going to grow me into that person, and all these trials and all these things that we go through every day, I think is like the weightlifting, so that one day we will get to that point. And I know that whatever it is, he's gonna be with us and keep us. He's gonna be there, you know.
Listen, I think that for some of us, maybe most of us, it's a lot easier to imagine doing well under some incredibly extreme thing that you've never experienced, like the threat of being boiled in oil, or the threat of, going to jail if you don't break the Sabbath or something. You just imagine that you'll just stand strong and you'll do whatever. I think that we have a much harder time dealing with actual things that we will experience and showing that we have the strength, like, dealing with the emotional challenge you just had this morning, right? Those things are much more small, but they're actually much more real and more challenging than the, theoretical extreme thing that we think, oh, well, if they threaten to cut my tongue out, you can't even imagine that. Okay, but you can imagine being judged because your mirror was dirty. You can imagine somebody, looking at something in your life and judging it in whatever way. And we have to get to that point where we transform the inner self to where we're not so affected by everybody else that way, or how they feel or what they think about you. All right? My daughter, who has a much more emotional side than I do, really could not understand how I don't get so emotionally affected, how I don't, the way others might for all the attacks that we get, for example. Because I'm not claiming to be super mature, but at least in that area, I don't have that, problem where I'm going to have other people's opinions affect what I'm doing and what I think about me and everything else. Now, I do value people's opinions, but those are only people I know value me. Why would I value their opinion if they don't value me? Okay? And so, clearly the people that are doing the attacking have demonstrated they don't value me, so why am I going to listen to that? That's just simple enough, okay?
I want to make a comment about what you just said. I'm starting to see more and more how much love and compassion and maturity you have, and integrity. And I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful to be here, and that the Father has brought me to you. Because I can see it so clearly now, is that I can see, like, when people, like, they're attacking, like, one person that was attacking recently, you were just like, they're mad at me right now. And you're like, I still love her. I still have compassion. I still want her to come home. I still want her to come back. Because I could see that that's how you feel about all the people.
Yeah. That
you still love all these people that are throwing poop at, throwing. And it's like, yeah, and that's like Yeshua. They beat him, they spit in him, and he said, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. And you see that it's coming from a point of hurt, like you said. It's not about you, because you're secure in what the Father's doing through you. And you're just, I'm just blown away. I'm just blown away and thankful, just so thankful for you and how you can love and how you can be strong and have integrity. And I just appreciate you more and more all the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Marlene. For all of you out there, look, you might hear me say stuff like that from the mic, but she hears me in the office. She hears me talking, and she'll ask me about people that are doing this or that. And so you're hearing what happens during normal daily activities, how I feel about people. You're not just hearing what's being put out here like, you think it's maybe just for a show or whatever, but this is how I really am with these people. Look, for lack of a better term, and I know the people listening are going to get offended, it's basically a tantrum. Okay, I don't know if there's a better word to put. I'm not accusing you of being a little baby throwing a tantrum, but that's what you're doing to some degree. You're having an emotional upheaval that's just spewing out, all right? And so how upset do you get with a little child that's throwing a tantrum? Yeah, it's annoying, it's inconvenient, it's loud, it's whatever. But is it personal? Why would you take that personally? Okay? There's people that are hurting, they're in pain, and they're lashing out, and they're throwing a little tantrum. And I get that. And so I can't get that angry with them, you know. I'm more just disappointed because I thought we had better relationships. I'm more disappointed and frustrated that, you know, you wouldn't come and let's find a way to work it out and that kind of thing. I'm also sad that you're exposing people that are just as weak or have other weaknesses and you're taking them with you. And I'm sad that reality's there. But, you know, none of you are mine. You're not my flock. This is what he gives me to shepherd. You're his. You can come and go as you want. Love that everybody would stay because I like you guys, you know. But it is what it is, you know. It just is what it is. And by the way, so if let's say you find yourself in a situation like Marlene did, and you find something that you didn't get to do that you should have done, whatever, but you missed. How about just going to somebody and saying, look, and you could even do it with a laugh, saying, I'm so embarrassed. I got so distracted and busy. I don't know how I missed this, but I missed this. But it is Shabbat, so we're just going to leave it till later. But I just wanted to let you know that I'm aware of it, so you don't think that I didn't know and whatever. And, you know, just own it. Have a little humor with it. Be a little self-deprecating and you know, kind of pick on yourself a little bit and just own it. And then say, look, you know, we all have our moments. I missed something, and I just want to let you know I missed something, you know. And so I'm aware of it, but please don't do anything with it yourself. Just leave it. I'll take care of it after Shabbat, and it'll be fine, right? And so just do that, and that disarms it, you know? One of the things I learned in life really early on, if you do anything that's going to get picked on, do it yourself first. You pick on you, it takes the ammunition out of their hands, okay? Because then you disarm everybody. It's like, what can you do? You already owned it. You already picked on yourself. You already laughed at yourself. What's there to judge? What's there to do? Okay? So do it that way. All right, Gabby.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
I'm so blessed to be here. I'm so grateful that I get to work on myself here with all these other amazing people who are doing the same thing. I'm so happy. So thank you for the teaching.
You're welcome. And I'm sorry to interrupt, but could everybody please embrace that the reason you're all here, and this is why then you wouldn't leave, is that you're here to work on yourself. Okay? You're not here to work on me, or the person sitting next to you, or the person who you can't believe dressed the way they did, or the person that you can't believe, you know, wears whatever perfume, or the person you can't believe, whatever it is that you work on you. Okay, you're here to work on you. If all the people that left understood that, they never would have left. Because your experience here was to grow you and work on you. And Abba put you here because it would bring out the thing you needed to deal with. And then what did you do? You ran away instead of dealing with it. And then you didn't actually get to grow. Because instead of dealing with it and growing, you left. And so I'm glad that you brought that out. I just wanted to emphasize that. She said the most profound thing. She's here to grow herself, okay? And having a place where it should be safe to do. Of course, a lot of you will make it feel unsafe because it's not mature enough yet, but it is safe, okay? All right, go ahead.
Okay, so when I first came into the walk, I pretty much abandoned everything about my personality or myself. Like everything I thought I knew, I just thought was wrong or bad. And so as like a lot of us have been doing these personality tests, it took me a long time to figure out which one was me. And I kept doing it and getting not quite the right fit until I finally found the right fit. And part of that is I have introverted feeling or authenticity as my co-pilot. I know you know, like the personality hacker stuff. Right. So I have kind of side-skirted that for most of my life, and I've now been kind of taking inventory of like who I was before and who I am now, and how that all kind of aligns with who I should be. And I guess my question is, if I'm supposed to be focusing on what's authentic to me or what feels right for me in terms of growing, of like making decisions that are in harmony with myself, how do I make sure that it's actually aligned with the above and not just what feels right to me? That makes sense.
Look, well, you got a couple of things going on. So one is, you've got the understanding yourself better through things like personality tests, and that's good. So you kind of figure yourself out. And then you're trying to figure out how to take that and align it vertically, okay? As you become more honest about yourself, then you also can see more clearly what the expectations are here and compare the two and see where they match and where they don't match. Of course, you also have me. You also have your husband, Joe, who are available to help give you some constructive feedback if you ask about things, especially him. He'll see it because he's with you all the time, right? Me, you might have to ask me about certain situations and say, hey, was that more of a Yeshua-like response? Or was that more of a old you response or some other thing, right? That might be there. And so, there's no real simple answer. Everybody wants to know, how do I know when I'm falling short or not? The more you understand the word, the more you'll start to see yourself more clearly. So there are things that you don't see now that you will see later, and you realize, oh, I was doing that before, and that was actually not right, but I didn't see it yet because I wasn't there yet. Okay, so there's a growth factor that would be a part of that.
So just some patience with myself then.
Yeah, so I would
And
say
honesty.
So what would you be? What are you, an ESFP or ENFP?
ESFP.
Okay, I got that right. All right, good.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
that was my first guess. Okay, good. All right, so we go to live stream. It's funny, we started very early with the Afterburn, so I thought, man, we got a lot of time. And yet we used it up real good. Okay, good.
All right, first one's from Monique Edwards. It's a two-parter regarding verse 22, cleansing our lives and obeying the truth. I see this in stages as we don't have everything revealed at once. Is it possible to be cleansing our lives by obeying truth that has been revealed?
Yes, that's basically what I just said to Gabby was, as you grow, you're going to continue to cleanse your lives with the truth as revealed that you are obeying and then incorporating in, right? So it's going to take a continual transitional thing going on in the flow. As you understand, you make the change. You were doing Sunday, you realize it's supposed to be Saturday, so you obey that truth, you move to Saturday. That's a cleansing of a certain aspect of your inner being. Then you realize that it's not just Saturday, but it's all day Saturday, and there's certain things that you need to be doing or not doing, all right? So these are things that you start to change or cleanse out your life as you change your inner being to change your mechanics from the driving of the inner being, right? And so basically that's where you're up to, as it says, as you have had currently revealed. And as it gets revealed more, you'll do more, okay? Yes.
All right, from Donna M., and I'm going to apologize, she broke this up into multiple different little posts, but am I correct, the word put on flesh, the Hebrew name for skin is, or which also is light, that also when Moshe spoke with Yah on the mountain, his face was on fire, and that when we have the light in us, it radiates out of our eyes and our skin has a glow. Can this be a touchstone to know we are on the path of transformation?
I don't know that I would agree that somehow you're going to be glowing or something's coming out of your eyes. So Moses is the only one that was ever said about. Okay, and he came down and it looked like his beard was on fire and he had to wear a veil, face glowed and all that kind of stuff. So no, I don't think that's a touchstone to know if you're in transformation, is that something's gonna come out of your eyes and your skin's gonna glow. You could go on a cruise like I did, my skin glowed. Turned brown and all that kind of stuff as I got a sunburn. But no, look, the I don't know if you want to call it a touchstone, but the evidence is in your actual behaving differently, thinking differently, making different choices than you would have before. You can't tell me that after you've been doing this for a while, that if you pause for a second and some life decision that's happening, it could be any kind of benign or big decision, it doesn't have to do with how big it is, but it's a decision that you might have or absolutely would have made differently 5 years ago or 3 years ago or before you started doing this walk, then you have evidence that you are different. Something comes up where you normally would have done A and you do B. And you're like, wow, I usually would have done that other thing, but I'm actually a different person now and I did this thing. I would have normally gotten upset. I didn't get upset. I normally would have done this and I didn't do that. These are the evidences of the transformation, okay? So look at the actions that you're taking, which are evidence of an internal change, because the actions are the expression of the internal, right? Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks, right? So out of the abundance of the heart, we take action. Okay, so that would be more to me the answer than looking for something as external as glowing eyes and glowing skin. Okay?
All right, from Edwin Zaldana, what would you counsel to someone who knows the commandments, tithing, Sabbath keeping, eating clean, keeping the holy days, but does not do them with the right intent or do them at all, but knows them?
The hell's wrong with you? No, kidding. Some of you can be all mad at me that I just said that. Look, if this is you, you're normal. And I mean normal from the point of view that everybody knows stuff that they should be doing, they know it's right to do, and they're not doing it. Okay, can we all agree? All right. Tony Robbins in his 30-day personal power program, one of the lines is he says, do you know anybody that knows what they need to do in a certain area of their life and knows exactly what to do and how to do it and isn't doing it? And he goes, do you know maybe that person intimately? Like maybe you look at them in the mirror every morning? I mean, that's one of Tony's sort of lines, okay? So, what would I counsel someone that knows and isn't doing? I would ask them, what are they doing? I mean, what's your goal? Where are you headed? If you know about these things, and all the Christians know about them, so I'm not going to ask them what they're doing, because they don't believe that they are in force. The question is, do you believe they're in force? He says, what will you counsel someone who knows the commandments and all the stuff? Well, knowing them, do you accept and embrace that they're still required and they're part of covenant? Okay? Because if that person says, yes, I believe they're all part of that, and they're still not doing it, I would want to understand, well, what are you doing then? You're wasting your time or whatever. I mean, what's your point? Okay? I mean, you are spinning in your space. I don't know. You're spinning on a wheel and not going anywhere. Okay? I don't know what to counsel. I really would look at you in the eye and go, okay, you know what to do and you're not doing it. What's the point? Okay? I really don't have a better answer to that. I mean, I may, as a wise guy, say something like, hey, what the hell's wrong with you or whatever, Like, but you're not doing. And by the way, we have lots of people come to us and tell us they've taken Dave Ramsey and they've done these other things and everything else. So they know, but they're not doing. They've taken the classes, still have no budget. They've taken the classes, still don't have an emergency fund. Taken the classes, haven't changed jobs or increased their income in any way. So this is everybody. Almost everybody here knows how to be healthier and isn't doing it. There's some aspect of your life you could be doing that's healthier, whether it's more sleep, eating different foods, taking some supplements, walking or exercise. There's things you're not doing. So we all have this problem, okay? So Edwin, I just want you to know you're not the only one, or whoever you're talking about is not the only one, okay? So if you're wanting to counsel somebody who knows and they're not doing, that's not your job anyway, okay? Because if they know and they're not doing, they need to seek guidance. They're not looking for someone just to come and give them guidance. They already know. They're just not doing it. Doesn't matter that they know. Okay? It just is what it is. All right. Do you know that every pack of cigarettes tells you it will kill you? Could you imagine buying something that actually on it says, this causes death, it will kill you? Skull and crossbones on the pack. People buy them anyway, don't they? So I can't explain to you why people know stuff and don't act with what they know. I can't counsel that unless the person's coming to you to try to figure out why they struggle. Now we have to dig, though. I have to go underneath and find out what is the driver that keeps them doing what they're doing and not doing what they know better. What is the problem? I can't find that out without asking a lot of questions. Okay? Which, by the way, people like until they don't like it. Okay, look, I'll tell you this. And I was talking to Elder about this earlier. I said, if we didn't do certain things, these people would never be mad at me. He says, basically, if you didn't counsel, okay? But all the good comes out of the counsel too. So I'd have to give up all the good to stop all the people from being mad at me, because it all comes out of counsel, pretty much. But the thing is this, don't ask for counsel if you don't want the red pill. If you don't want the truth. Okay, because all I'm going to do is pick up a giant mirror and stick it in your face and say, this is the problem. And I'm going to tell you the words that you need to hear, like it's because you're afraid, or you're lazy, or you're prideful, or you're still living in your past, or something. And you're not going to want to hear that. And deal with it. Okay? Because that's the kind of stuff that's underneath why someone doesn't do these things and they know better. They know about these things but not doing them. Why? Well, I don't know. You have to come with that specific person. I'll dig it out, I promise you. We'll figure it out real quick. I have a gift for that. Okay? That's not to be a joke. I mean, I have a gift to pull. I will dig right to it, like almost on the first guess, okay? We will get to it. But it's not yours to figure out unless the person comes to you, and then you have to know the questions to ask to figure out what's going on internally, because this is all about the internal being, right? And there's a fear, an insecurity, a weakness, a desire that would have to be compromised in order to actually do what they're supposed to do. They'd have to give up something. There's all kinds of things it could be. All right, next.
All right, from Easy D. Herrera's a two-parter from verse 19 in 1 Peter. Yeshua is our unblemished blueprint to becoming incorruptible, spotless, who through him we believe Yahweh who raised Yeshua will help our inner being transform from Rosh Kodesh to Rosh Kodesh, from Shabbat to Shabbat, to become the new reborn B'nai Elohim that is on Abba's frequency, the helper, Ruach.
All right, that was kind of all over the place. Pull up the first part again and let me kind of work through it. All right, so Yeshua is our unblemished, yes. Okay, so almost everything you said I would say is true. I don't know what the point you were trying to make though, okay? So he is the blueprint, that is true, for becoming incorruptible, spotless, etc. Through him, we believe that Yahweh raised Yeshua, yes, and he will help our inner being transform. That part is tricky, unless you understand what it means for him to help you, okay? He's not going to do it for you. He's going to put you in situations that cause you to deal with and transform your inner being, okay? Next part. Rosh Kodesh, okay, so Shabbat to become the new reborn, B'nai Elohim, child of Elohim, that is on Abba's frequency, the helper, Ruach. Okay, so that's confused and not correct, okay? So yes, you're transforming your inner being is going to bring you closer into alignment and congruent with the frequency, vibration, essence of Yahweh, okay? Absolutely. I don't know why you would connect it to the helper or the Ruach, and you wrote Roach, so I don't know what the Roach is, but, I guess you can't kill the Ruach either, so it's like a roach, I don't know. I don't want to accuse you of smoking one, so put down the clip. Okay, so stop laughing. Well, you guys have bad lives. What were you doing in your youth? Knowing these things. All right. No, but see, the thing is that the Ruach, the helper, is the way he communicates with you, right? And the helper really is Yeshua. John 14 explains all that. Okay, he says, I'm not going to leave you orphans, I'm coming to you. Okay, but you don't need to be on his frequency. The Ruach was talking to you and getting your attention when you were fully in sin and stupid and everything else. All right? So, however, in our transforming our inner being, we do come in more alignment with him. And you could say that's vibrational and frequency and everything else as well. That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. All right? So, but the idea of him helping us, just make sure we understand what help looks like. Help isn't always going to look like the way you want it. It's not going to always look very fun. It's going to be what you need to transform. He's going to place you in situations that will transform you. Look, a lot of you people, no, all of you people that left, you have missed out on all kinds of growth opportunities because you left. Okay? because you would have been able to grow through these things here if you hadn't left. Okay? I'm not saying that you couldn't grow outside of here. I'm saying, but in your running away from, instead of dealing with, you missed out on growth opportunities that he put in front of you, and instead of growing, you ran away. And I'm not saying that to mock or pick on, but that's what you did. Okay? And you could have grown, could have been the catalyst that would have helped me grow. Oh, but Rabbi, you wouldn't listen. You know, you never know. You never know. Elders been surprised by lots of things I've done. Okay? Okay? You just don't know. Don't assume you know. Most people who guess about me guess wrong. All right? And so just, but you missed out on that opportunity. Still there, that, by the way. You still can come back. And you can deal with the stuff that you refuse to deal with. Okay? And you need to run to other ministries that are never going to make you deal with it because they're not going to know what you took with you and everything else because, until, of course, you run into problems with that ministry because you don't like what they're teaching or what they said or how they treated you or how they responded to something or whatever their personality is. All right? Everywhere you go, they bring you with you. Just remember that. And you know what else? Everybody paying attention? If you were supposed to grow or gain something that you didn't because you left, he's going to make you deal with it anyway. He's going to put you in another situation. You can't run from this. If there was something you were supposed to learn, you can't run from it. Might as well deal with it here. I mean, seriously. I built a building with enough room for you. All right? All right, next.
All right, from A. Espino in 1 Peter verse 18, redeemed from your feudal behavior, inherited from your fathers. Is that referring to our fathers like from Adam or referring to habits and things taught to us by our family?
No, it's talking about all of it. Okay, by your fathers, he's talking about all of the generations previous to you, the things that were passed down through the generations that you may have picked up. Okay? So the answer is not either, it's both, all. Okay? Some things, much more recent, have probably been things you picked up. Some things were passed down generationally that people are still doing. All right? So it's both. All right?
All right, from Lise, please help me understand 1 Peter verse 17, pass the time of your sojourning in fear.
All right, so it's saying because you understand what was said previously, like as if you call on the Father who without partiality judges according to each one's works, you should then pass the time of your life, in other words, you're sojourning your life, we're walking this out, in awe and reverence for the one who's doing the judging and for what he said he will do as far as judging you according to your works. Go listen to the fear of Yahweh teaching if that will help, okay? And understanding what this fear is. But you should be, Deuteronomy 10:12, and Yahweh, Moses says, now what does Yahweh expect of you but to fear him, okay? So knowing he's the one judging, you should have that awareness and awe and reverence for who is watching you at all times. All right, hopefully that answered that. Next.
All right, from Greg Wallen in 1 Peter 1:24, is the intent to transform whatever the intrinsic nature is into the intent of the word of Elohim? Flesh is grass and esteem of man is flower, both fall intent, maybe some full intent, change what is unseen.
Well, I don't know that I love your wording, but your wording is probably fine. The intent is that we transform our nature to be completely like his nature. Okay, transform it into that matching nature. Okay, and you can say that it is the word of Elohim, yes, because the word of Elohim would be Yeshua, et cetera, et cetera. So, the wording is fine. I think I'd rather be more like specific by saying your nature into his nature. Now, yes, the word of Elohim or the word does express his nature when you look at the word itself, okay? And so when you say flesh is grass and the esteem of man is flour, both fall. So those are the things that are the fleshly need to fall so that the incorruptible can come out. Yes, so the intent would be to change what, intent is to change into what is unseen, okay? So I'm guessing that's what you're talking about, Greg, okay? But since it is Greg, I might have to scratch my beard for Greg, okay? Anyway, you don't understand that? It's okay. All right, so next.
From Olivia Dearth, does physical pain halt inner growth? Having not been to Shabbat in months and believing the inner being needs it, it seems like I'm in a place of not growing, but I know when pruning happens, growth happens in the roots first. I miss coming.
First point, does physical pain halt inner growth? It can, if you let it. It doesn't by default, okay? Physical pain is physical pain. Inner growth is inner growth. However, if you allow physical anything to be enough of a distraction, it will distract you from your inner growth, okay? So yes, physical pain can halt inner growth. It shouldn't, okay? But it easily can because physical pain is an incredibly, effective distractor. I mean, it's very hard to ignore physical pain. Okay? So yes, it absolutely can create a problem for inner growth if you allow it to, which I'm not saying that you're a terribly weak person if you allow it to. If you have enough physical pain, it's really hard to not be distracted by that, okay, and have it interfere with your growth, okay? So now having not been to Shabbat in months and believing the inner being needs it, it seems like I'm in a place of not growing. Okay, so that's a whole different problem, all right? You cannot grow in some ways where you are because you need physical interaction with people to do that. However, you still should be able to grow from where you are in all the other aspects that can be done without physical interaction with people. Okay, and you can still interact with people, it's just not the same. There's a different level of body language and other things that you get when you're physically interacting with people. There's a lot more communication than just words. Just like there's more communication in like a video chat than there is from just texting, because you get to see and get more that you can read, okay? Just like you can get more from just audio than from written material because you can hear tone of voice, okay? So yes, your growth is going to be hampered to some degree when you can't come. I have empathy for all of you that struggle with that, and it's not your fault, but I'm just telling you the truth, right? However, that doesn't mean you can't grow. You just can't grow in ways that you would if you could be here. But that's why we live stream. This is better growth than you got if there wasn't anything to watch, if you didn't have access to this in any form, okay? And so, we will continue to pray that you can be here, okay? We've enjoyed it when you are. We know that you have your challenges and that you will be back. But in the meantime, recognize that there's so much inner growth you can do while not here. As a matter of fact, there's some inner growth you can only do because you're frustrated about being here, because it's forcing you to grow in that area, okay? So not being able to have what you want does cause growth, which you wouldn't be able to have if you just had easy access to here all the time, okay? So realize that you still have opportunities for the inner being to grow. You are actually getting things that your inner being needs. Father apparently feels that there's growth that you need to do at home, okay, which is why you're there. And so embrace and look for that as opposed to being frustrated with what you don't have and what you can't do, okay? All right, so hopefully that helped you, Olivia. Anybody else? Because it's now 5:30.
From Evangeline Agalasso in 1 Peter 1:2, and sprinkling of the blood of Yeshua. Could you please expound on that?
No. In 1:2. All right, so he says, chosen according to the foreknowledge of Elohim the Father, set apart by the Spirit unto obedience and the sprinkling of blood of Yeshua Messiah. Okay, so again, he's bringing up the sprinkling of blood of Messiah as the thing that was used to do the redeeming. Okay, it's part of the whole process there. He's just referencing some of the elements, okay? You have the Father, you've got being set apart by the Ruach unto obedience, and then you have what gives you the redemption to have that born again, he gives you that clean page to start with, right? Okay, next.
All right, from Masulam C, would it be safe to say that people who are in a depressed state are lacking that belief of the good news? Being in this walk, I feel like sometimes people lose focus, end up going backward in feelings.
Let's look at depression correctly, okay? It's not a lack of belief, okay? You're depressed because you have a lack of presence versus the past. You're still dealing with the past. Okay? Depression is living in the past and believing that the past is still your present. All right? So it's not a belief problem. It's a time-bound problem. Okay? The more you can be present in the now and then think about the future, which is the belief in the good news, the more you can snap out of your depression. The depression is because the past is still in your present. Okay? Anxiety is the future, which hasn't happened yet, coming into your present. And so you're all worried about something that hasn't happened. Depression is dealing with stuff that already has happened. And you're feeling like it's never gonna get better, and you're feeling like it's never gonna go away, and you're feeling like it ruined your life. Whatever it is, it's all about what's already happened, okay? So it's not a lack of faith. You can't actually activate faith in that state. Okay, you're in a place where faith cannot be active because faith looks forward to things unseen. You're still wallowing in, I'm not saying it in a bad way, you're stuck, immersed in what's already happened, okay? So you can't be in a place of faith. So it's not that you're lacking, meaning like you don't have the will for it, you just can't even do it. So yes, you're lacking belief because you can't be in a place of belief, which is forward-looking, if you're in a place that's fully backward-looking. You have to get your head into now. That's step one. Just now. Forget about whatever happened. That doesn't exist anymore. Now is what is real. And then you can start thinking about where you want tomorrow's now to be. And then you can start bringing in the good news of expectation about the future into the mix. But you can't if you're still tethered and locked into what already happened, okay? Because that's what your depression is. Part of it's a fear that what happened is gonna happen again because you're so locked into what happened. If you were born again, then that stuff that happened didn't happen to you. It happened to the dead you. You're not that person. We've had this discussion many times on this broadcast, okay? Not this one, but like on our YouTube channel here in the live broadcast, is that you have to understand the idea of being a new person. Okay, you go in the water, the mikveh, you have this ritual of symbolic death in water. You're supposed to come out and be new, okay? I mean, if you are 40 years old, are you really the same person you were when you were 20 years old? Are you the same person that you were when you were 7 or 8 when whatever terrible thing happened to you? No, you're not the same person. It still happened to you, but it happened to you, that person. It's not happening to you now. Okay? But be in now. Right now, we're still on Shabbat. Well, close to ending it, right? We're in Shabbat. Nothing terrible is happening to you. You're listening to some positive things. It doesn't mean the negative things and terrible things didn't happen. They did. But in order for you to be able to focus forward, okay? You say, I feel like sometimes people lose focus and end up going backward. They're not going backward, they're tethered to backward. They're tied and bound to the past. You have to cut those binding cords and be free of the past. Learn from it. Don't forget what happened, meaning that you didn't learn from it. Just understand it's not happening now. It already happened. It's over. It's gone. But it left me all scarred and damaged. Yes, it did. But that doesn't mean you have to stay wallowing in and mad about and depressed about and frustrated about what already happened to you. What you should be more depressed about is what you're going to end up in 20 years in the same place because you can't get yourself unlocked. You have to get unlocked and untethered from the past. okay? That needs counsel, like professional help, counsel, like from somebody like Janet, where they can help you untether from your past. The past is not your present unless you stay locked into it. Then it will be. Even if it's not really happening, you're going to act like it did anyway. Doesn't even matter if it's happening or not. You're going to respond to life as if it is. Okay? It's like this lady, I tell the story all the time. She was in her 70s when I met her, and she had been raped as a child, maybe 3 years old, 3 years old. And that was the only thing that happened to her, but it wrecked her life, okay? So I'm not minimizing that. It wrecked her life. And I said to her in her 70s, I said, the problem is you've never dealt with this. What do you mean I never dealt with this? I've been in therapy so many times and on medication. No, you've tried to Band-Aid it and everything else. You've not dealt with it. You're still reliving it and letting it, you're tethered to it. Even though you've not been unsafe since then, nothing else terrible has happened to you since then, in 70 plus years, but you're still living as if you're that little child who's in danger of having this happen to you. Okay? And somehow you have to realize that you're not that little child anymore, and you're not in danger of it happening again. And so with therapy, you can explore and understand that it's not your fault. You couldn't have stopped it. You had no power, but now you're an adult, and you can stop things, and you have power, and you can make choices that you couldn't make then. But yet you still feel like that totally vulnerable, disempowered 3-year-old. Well, how are you supposed to be an adult 75-year-old if you can't get past the 3-year-old? And again, I'm not minimizing the horror of what happened to you. Some of you went through some really horrific things that are like, I can't even fathom how you survived that, okay? But you did. And the stuff isn't happening anymore. It hasn't for some of you for 30, 40 years since the last time something happened. It only happened because you were in a certain environment with certain people and a certain age when you were vulnerable and had no way to protect yourself. Meaning the odds of it happening again are almost zero, okay? I mean, really close to zero, but yet you're still living there because you've not healed that brokenness that happened back then. And that needs therapy. To heal that, you have to heal that. Otherwise, you will always be that victim and allow that person that did that terrible thing to you to ruin every aspect of your life going forward. It did not need to be that, okay? Many, many people have had amazing lives with the same experiences because they refuse to let that experience ruin everything. It ruined a lot. I mean, you have that tainted experience that you can't get rid of, okay? You can't, it's there. But why do you give that person so much power to ruin everything else going forward? Every relationship, every other thing, because you will not let it go. Because you won't bring reality in. Reality is that there's reasons why that happened when it did, things you could not have stopped or done anything about that do not exist now. Is that fair? Is that reasonable? Am I getting through to anybody? You need to bring reality in that you are not in that danger anymore. That the things that allowed and caused that terrible stuff to happen no longer exist in your life. You're free. He wants to set you free from all that. From all that depression, all that fear, all that victimhood, okay? Yes, terrible things have happened to you. I think it's more sad and terrible that you're allowing it to ruin all the rest of your life, okay? I'm not judging you or picking on you. Don't take it wrong. I feel it's very sad that you would allow that person who did that horrible thing to own your rest of your life. Why would you give that person that power to do that? What they did was bad enough, wasn't it? What they did was bad enough, wasn't it? So why would you let them have more power over you? Actually, probably the person, if you're old enough, isn't even alive anymore. They're not even around, and yet you still have this problem. because you haven't truly snapped out of the past. You're still that little girl or that little boy that you were when these terrible things happened in so many ways. And you have to come into reality, okay? Because if you don't, you can't embrace the good news, because the good news is forward-looking. And you can't look forward when you're still locked into the past, okay? Please make it important to fix this. You still have so much life to live, and you're not living it if you're still stuck in the past. Okay, you're not. You're existing in victimhood, okay? And I'm not saying the people that claim victim who are not victims, you were a victim. Terrible things happened. But you don't need to live there. You don't have to stay there. I'm begging you not to, all right? I'm pleading with you. Come to the present where you're not in danger. Those people are not a threat to you. What happened to you will not happen again. And for a lot of you, it only happened in that one little window. Once, or maybe it was more than once, but only in that one little window of time that's so long ago, it's not happening anymore, and it can't happen anymore. And so please, let's move into the present and live. Okay? Don't be depressed. Don't live in your past. Get the therapy and help that you need so you can fix that, all right? Okay, your problem isn't needing a medication either. You need to just own that you're safe now. That's all you need to do, is own that you're safe now. Find some people that can help you understand that you're safe now. Okay? I mean, I do that for a lot of people, but yet a lot of people say I'm unsafe, so go figure that. Okay? If you want to stay in your nonsense, yes, I'm unsafe. Okay, I'm not going to allow you to stay in your nonsense if you come talk to me. If you want to know that something that you're safe, meaning protected, nothing bad's going to happen, yeah, you're safe. Elder and I and Rabbi Tom and all, we can make you feel safe. We can assure you you're safe. That's part of our job. All right? You know. All right, that's going to wrap it up because we are running late. I think that was a good one to end on. Okay, that was a powerful one. It was an important one. All right? So that was it for the Afterburn.